So you just got through being interviewed this morning. Who was it that interviewed you?
We had the reporter from KTRE come in, and they kind of doing a candidate interview. So they asked me if I would talk to them, and I said, absolutely.
Good. Well, I'm glad to see that you're getting some publicity and some of the things that need to be said and need to be got out. I've heard so many things, you know, through this election. This is the absolute most strange thing I have ever seen in our national level. I have a lot of Facebook friends that are very political because that's what I've been involved with for the last several years. And I have never in my life seen anything as ugly as people are in this election cycle. The viciousness, they go on and they say, if you're a Ted Cruz voter, then just get off of my timeline, and if you don't like Donald Trump or you don't like this one, or, you know, I just don't even want to, you know, see. And I've never seen that kind of hatred in our country, and it's happening everywhere.
And it happens on local level as well.
I know, I'm seeing that, and the sad thing is that I've gotten to know most of the people in Trinity County, especially those that are in office or are running for office, and they're good people. All of them, just about. I mean, I can't think of anybody that's not a decent person at heart, and it just breaks my heart that all the junk. But it's good to hear the positive things. So let's talk about some positive. You came to Commissioner Court the other day, and you were given some, an end-of-the-year report, basically.
Yes.
And you threw some numbers out that I was very impressed with. You want to tell us about that?
Well, sure. The number I'm most proud of that I think we've accomplished is that we've reduced the crime rate in this county. When I took office in 2013, that year we had approximately 800 and some odd reported crimes. Now this is all crimes from misdemeanor level all the way up to felony level. And that year we had a disposition rate of about 85%, which means the case was closed either by arrest or by other means. So, but over the course of 3 years, we've seen burglaries decline. My first year in office, we had well over 120 burglaries in 2013. This last year, we had just a little over 60. So burglaries have essentially been cut in half,
Right.
which is tremendous because burglaries and thefts are the biggest part of our crime. But out of the 800 crimes reported in 2013, this last year, we had just a little over 600. So the overall crime rate has dropped by 25%,
Right.
which crime dropped nationwide by about 5%. We went into the extra level, we got down to 25%. You know, drug use is down, while drugs will always be a problem.
Right.
But if we get them down to a level to where it's not as hard to keep up with who's doing it, we can make more arrests, and we can be efficient in our arrests and make sure our report writing is proper. The other things, like our thefts, like I said, they're down by 50%. But overall, crime has been reduced 25%, and that's a key thing we need to look at.
Right.
And our solve rate or our disposition rate is running about 85 to 87% for the last 3 years, which when I took office the year before, that rate was at 50%. So we've reduced a number of offenders in this by working with the district attorney and other law enforcement agencies. In the last 3 years, 195 people were sentenced to TDC. Now this does not include drug rehabs or safety programs. This is strictly offenses that require jail time.
So is the burglary and theft, is there a parallel between that and the drug use and drug crimes?
Absolutely. When someone gets on drugs, namely meth, because that's what we have the biggest problem around here with, they're unable to hold down a job. So when they first start on it, we see a lot of times they have a job. First-time users. They have a job, they get on methamphetamines. And it's not long until they become to where they spend their paycheck on nothing but dope.
Right.
They're not taking care of the family or bills at home. And then we see them start missing work. They start getting abnormal behavior, they don't show up for work, then they get fired. When they lose their income, then they go to family and friends, borrow money. Then when that runs out, then they start stealing. They start stealing from their family when their family tells them to go away, and basically tells them, you know, you're not around me no more. This is when we see them going in and doing arbitrary break-ins and breaking into people's houses and stealing stuff out of cars that are unlocked or breaking into cars. So basically the drug problem and the theft is pretty much the same. You have to steal to pay for your drugs. And after you use drugs, then you go out and you steal some more. So yes, if we can reduce the drug offenders, the drug problem, which we've done, you see the burglary rates go down as well.
My kids are around they're around a lot of the 20-somethings and the 30-somethings, and they hear and and see and know a lot of what's going on, and they're talking about the long prison sentences and the strong stand
Right.
that this county has taken against this, and it's causing people to say, wait a minute, am I willing to spend years in prison over something so stupid?
Exactly.
And I'm glad to see that. I'm glad to live in a county where the people take care of us.
Well, you have to look at it like this too. Our young kids in the past, when they see the family members or they see friends or they see them do these things and there's no consequences for it,
Right.
then they say, well, hey, why not me? Why can't I do that? But when they see consequences, they see these, you're going to jail, you're going to get arrested, they're going to catch you, they're going to take everything you stole plus some back,
Right.
and you're going to end up doing prison time. These kids are going to grow up thinking that's not a good idea. In the past, we haven't been doing that. And I think we owe it to our children to see what happens to the old ones. Rehab is pretty much, it doesn't work. You cannot rehabilitate people that well. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it's improbable. And
You have to want to
you have to want it. You have to want to change it, and then you still have the ability. You have to. But a lot of these people that won't change, they don't know anything any different.
Right.
They've always been in this situation. They grew up in these situations. Not everybody, but a lot. And so they don't know any different.
Right.
And so they're going to continue to do it. But whenever you see people start to face prison time or to face the consequences for the crime, then the younger generation is going to grow up saying, I know better than that, because
Right.
you're going to get caught. And I think that, and that's my goal in the next 4 years, is people are seeing that now. They're seeing that the older generation are starting to get in trouble. They're starting to go to prison. Our younger generation sees that, but now we need to get involved with our kids.
Right.
We need to give them things to do. We need to let them know that the police aren't bad. We need to be involved in schools, not in a police way, but in a friendly way. And then we need to go to the schools, which we've been doing, and we need to emphasize the schools need to they need to take care of more discipline in the schools.
Right.
When you take discipline out of the schools, kids don't respect teachers because they're not being disciplined at home. When they get 18 and they get out of the home, they're going to do the same thing to the police. And when they do that, this is where you have conflict between police and the public.
Yeah. So that leads us into what we were talking about earlier, the posse. You've talked to us about this a couple of times in the past, and it's really an exciting program. It sounds like it's going to be something that's awesome.
It is. We've got a lot of interest, and of course we're going to wait till after elections to really try to get into it big time so we can devote all our time into it. But we're looking for volunteers that want to get involved. This is going to be a police support group type organization that it'll have its fundraisers, it'll have its memberships, and we're also going to have training to the public. We want to start training people how to use firearms safely, help people get their handgun license where people can carry.
Right.
We also want to get into programs where we're giving the youth something to do, whether it be through shooting sports, archery sports, backing, the 4-H, getting involved in that. Anything we can do to get our youth going into a different direction
Right.
they are now. One of the things I would like for the Sheriff Posse to do, and we've got several groups that's got to come together in this, including the county, and that's out at the Y in Groveton. You have a lot of land there that we're not really doing a whole lot with. And there's an old broken down rodeo arena there that's still in use. But I think if we can build us a nice covered rodeo arena where it can be used for livestock shows, and, we have one of those as well, but we can do more, and we can also do lots of rodeos. And I think if we can get our kids involved in rodeoing, a lot of kids that have horses have no place to go with them, and other kids may want a horse. And I think we can probably get programs where we can help kids that want to really get into rodeo and
Right.
show them off to a good start. It's going to take a lot of money. It's going to take a lot of people to be involved, but I think we can come together as a group in Trinity County, and a lot of people expressed an interest in being involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
And when we get that going, I think again, that's going to help our youth find something else to do with their life other than turn into the life of crime.
Right. My granddaughter is 14. She'll be 15 soon. But this year she asked for a gun for Christmas. And of course, all my grandkids have guns. She's a wonderful shot. She's just really good. And I don't know what kind of gun it was. It was some kind of rifle that she wanted. I wasn't paying much attention. But I know that that's something my grandkids love, the shooting. And they have a berm at their house. They built a big thing where they can shoot at home. And that would be something that would be awesome to have something where the kids can go out and do that. And
4-H has a shooting sports that
The
they
4-H.
do now. The 4-H does, and they've got quite a few kids getting involved in it. And I think if it's advertised and we get the program out there, I think we'll have a lot more.
That'd be awesome.
I think teaching guns safety to kids at a very young age is very important.
Absolutely.
I think when a lot of society has become so removed from guns. They moved to the cities, they didn't think they needed one, they didn't do hunting when they was growing up, whatever. And that's why there's such a fear of guns,
Right.
because people don't know what they are, they don't know how to use them. But when people learn to start using a gun properly and keep their guns safely, guns are a precious asset. We
They
don't
are.
want to lose that. And the less our kids are raised with them and are introduced into them, the more they're going to be against them when they get older, because they don't know the truth. They're only hearing what the liberal media is sticking in their head. They're dangerous, they kill, when we all know they don't.
Right.
It's the evil in the world that does that.
I grew up, in the 60s, and we had guns. We had, my dad had a 22, and I was a pretty good shot with a rifle. But all the television programming through the years, we got rid of our guns when we were real young. Michael and I did, and all the television programming, shooting his friend, and those kind of things just had put a fear of guns in me for a long time. And then we moved to Trinity, and Michael went and bought a gun from my brother, and I was not happy because I didn't want a gun in my house. And it didn't take very long before I finally started shooting it, and I fell in love with it. And I've got several guns of my own, and I enjoy shooting. And shooting is a great sport, as well as for food and for protection. They'd like for us to believe that the founding fathers thought it was all about providing food, but guns have a lot of roles. And if we can set aside and push aside that programming, because I was programmed, I really was, but I had this terror of one of my babies getting a gun and shooting himself or shooting the other. And of course, our grandchildren, they respect guns. They don't mess with them. They shoot them. They love them. But they're not idiots, and they know how to handle a gun. But that's because they've been exposed to it. And I think it's an awesome program if you can expose children to them. And the whole thing, we really need to do something for our kids. I've always been in youth ministry and youth-related work, especially when I was younger and up until about 40. And I know how important it is to have something for kids to do, because they're going to do
They're going to do something. We got to figure out what
if you don't have something for them to do and have a program and get them involved and get them excited about it, you're going to lose another generation.
And that's
Correct. We're very close to it now.
No, but it's exciting to see a program and to see this going on. A lot of stuff going on in this election. A lot of stuff. I've been hearing things and dispelling things. You hear stuff about people and you're like, what? And I've heard rumors about you that I know are absolutely no.
well,
Absolutely not.
Rumors are going to be a part of every election.
Right.
And they don't necessarily always come from your opponent. They come from people out in the community that just, over the years, figured out a way they didn't like you.
People don't like you?
well, there's a few.
I can't imagine.
Most of
You're going to have personality conflicts.
Sure.
Everybody is. Everybody's personality is not going to get along, and I certainly have the same issues. That some people don't like my personality, and I understand that. You can't like everybody and just want to be around them. But whenever people start just spreading malicious lies,
Right.
It don't just hurt me. It hurts the families. It hurts friends, and I see it in every race. And it's like I said, it doesn't always come from the opposition. It just comes from what I call the haters in the world. And they're not for anybody's opponent, they're just against that particular person.
Right.
In my case, I've got some that are just against me. They have started some very vicious rumors that basically are criminal in nature.
Mm-hmm.
These things, I assure you, I would have been under the jail by now.
Right.
But, you know, the last election was probably dirtier, it was dirtier than this one was, because I had several lawsuits filed against me. Lawsuits that I could not defend myself until after the election. Well, we still won the election, and after the election, all these lawsuits that actually, before they went to judges, they were being dismissed.
Right.
Because they were frivolous lawsuits. And while no lawsuits have been filed this time, one rumor that was started the last time has resurfaced as if it's a brand new rumor, and it's got a lot of people, hey, is that true? Well, obviously it's not.
Right.
I don't want to go into the details of the rumor, but there's only one major rumor out there about me, and I think that most people that know me shouldn't second guess
Right.
that fact. But it does hurt families, and it hurts kids. My kids have been affected for it. My family's been affected by these rumors, not because they think they're true. It's just because that people say these awful things about somebody that's trying to do good.
Mm-hmm.
My heart's in this job.
Mm-hmm.
I have a vested interest in this county. I grew up in this county.
Mm-hmm.
I've got kids in school here. I've owned businesses, bought and sold businesses for years in this county. And eventually I will get back into doing that again when I'm not being the sheriff anymore. So I've got to, I want to see Trinity County grow. I want to see it I don't want to become a suburb, you know, of Houston, but I do want to see us grow a little bit, get a better tax base to where we can afford better things for our children. And people are not going to come here and build houses if there's a lot of thieving going on. They're just not going to, because a lot of the people that we see coming here now are weekenders. And these weekenders come here, they build a house or buy a property, they go home, they're vacant during the week, and their house gets broken into. They're not going to tell their neighbors, hey, go build a house down there, because they're not, because they know that everything's going to get stolen. So when we get the crime under better control, which I think we've done a good job of, you see the thefts, the burglaries continue to go down. People are going to start buying properties up here, buying some of these dilapidated properties, cleaning them up, properties that are on the tax roll that are not being, you know, the taxes aren't being paid. People are going to start buying these properties that will pay their taxes. They're going to build nice places there, get the value of the property up. We're going to, in return, see better tax revenue coming in, and then it's going to be better for everybody. And it'll take the tax burden off just the locals that are here that are struggling. But we have to maintain a good crime rate or low crime rate before that's going to ever happen.
Right.
And I think we're getting there. I do see more people starting to look at an interest in coming to Trinity County.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to send out a positive message about what Trinity County is, what it's about.
I want to kind of change direction just a little bit here. Back in the fall, we had your opponent, Richard Morris, come in to a Patriot meeting, and nobody knew who he was. And then he introduced himself, and he told us where he worked and where he lived. And at that time, I'm not sure if it was August or September, but at that meeting, he told me that he lived wherever it was he was working, or he lived in Houston or somewhere else outside of the county, and that he hoped that in 3 years he would be able to retire and move here. How can he run for sheriff if he doesn't live here? Because, I mean, like I said, he told me this, and I wouldn't want a sheriff that didn't live here.
Well, that kind of leads to something that I'd like to say. If you're going to elect somebody that's going to enforce the law, first I would think you would need to obey the election laws.
True.
Before I'm going to put you in charge of enforcing any other law.
Right.
Okay? And you can lie and say, oh, I live there. You can change paperwork, but do you really live there? Mm-hmm. And he doesn't live here. He said it himself. He doesn't work here. He works in Fort Bend County. And he's only been in law enforcement, all his given total time has been about 11 years. On his literature, he states he's been in law enforcement since 1985, which gives you a false impression he's got 30 years of experience. But when you do some digging and research, you will find in fact that he only has 11 years. He did 4 or 5 back in the 80s, and then he got out of law enforcement for several years, and recently, about 4 or 5 years ago, got back into it. And he's a transport deputy. Now, nothing against the transport deputies, but before you're the sheriff, the top law dog in the county, you need to have diversity in your job. You need to know how it all works. You need to know how to run a jail. You need to know how to, not only transport deputies, but there's a lot that goes with transport deputies, getting court ready, inmates ready for court. There's just a whole lot of things that you got to know. You got to know how to operate $1 million in this county. That's what it is, a little over $1 million. And if you've never done that before and you don't have any experience, you know, we're taking a huge risk just putting somebody in there that has absolutely no experience. If he had 30 years experience, he'd have a Master's Peace Officer certificate, which he does not have. You can get that as early as 10 years with a certain amount of training hours. You can get it again at 15 years with a certain amount of training hours. And then basically it's handed to you at 20 years. And if you had 30 years, I would think that he would have the certificate, but he does not. So putting on literature that he's been in law enforcement since '85 is what they call it, kind of like Common Core math. It's not accurate.
Yeah.
And I think that if you're going to preach that I'm going to be transparent, I'm going to be truthful, I'm going to be honest, well then let's start with how much experience do you really have, where do you really live, how long have you really been here.
Right.
Another problem that I have with just somebody, and I don't have any problem with outsiders moving here, we need that.
Sure.
But for somebody to come in and take this job as important of a job, you got to know the people. You got to know the good people as well as the bad. It takes years, and I've been in this county in law enforcement for over 20 years. It takes years to learn who the criminals are, how they operate, who they hang with, where they live, what they're into, before you can actually get a good criminal case on.
Sure.
And start learning to watch them. And the deputies that I have this knowledge. I have this knowledge, but it's not something you can learn overnight.
Right.
It's something that's going to take years to learn. He does not have this knowledge. He does not have this experience. So arresting drug dealers is probably one of the hardest things there is, because they learn every time they get caught, what mistakes I made, let's not do that again. And often you got to catch them 3 or 4 times before you get them sent to prison. And that's just the way the system works. That's not law enforcement's fault. That's just the judicial system, the lawyers playing their games. So the point is you've got to be familiar with everybody in the area. You've got to know the roads. You've got to know the subdivisions. You've got to know where the bad areas are. If you don't know all that, you're not going to be effective in reducing crime, much less actually making good cases.
If somebody else stepped in, say that this gentleman did step in and win, how would the adjustment be in your department, you know, for your people to have somebody come in that's probably less qualified than they are?
This is true. Well, there's a lot that goes with that question you just asked. First of all, the deputies that work for me and that I work with at the SO, they have respect for me, I have respect for them. They're from here. But any one of those deputies, dispatchers, anybody that works over there can go to a neighboring county and make substantially more money than they make here now.
Right.
They stay here because they like the community. Some of them are from here. They stay here because they have respect for me and what we're trying to do. Now this man has already gone out and told everybody that they're honest, they're dishonest, they have no integrity. And they've heard this. The people have come to him and said, oh, I heard that the sheriff's opponent saying this, this, and this about y'all. Basically calling into question their character. Well, they've lost all respect for him. And I advise the people that work there to stay out of the election. I don't, you know, I'm assuming you're going to respect me enough to vote for me, which they all are. But I don't tell them they have to. I don't tell them they got a campaign for me. But if you have your opponent out there that's bashing them as hard as he's bashing me, there's no respect for him.
Right.
They're not going to stay. They're going to move on down the road, and they're going to go make more money somewhere else. And that itself is going to be a problem, because then you're starting over with a fresh batch of deputies that probably won't be here, or from here. You're going to have to pull in, and this goes back to the point where I was telling you, it takes years to learn who they are before you can effectively manage the crime.
Right. So it would be a tremendous shakeup.
That would be a large turnover.
Yeah.
And then you're talking about the overtime you're going to have, trying to fix, you know, when you hire somebody. It takes a long time to go through and get the cream of the crop.
Right.
I went through several deputies in the beginning. It's just not working out. You can go find a job somewhere else.
Right.
And now we've got to a good group of men and women that work there, and I think it would be a shame if this county lost them.
Well, I know that when we talked before, I think it was last year, we talked about the turnover, like a 16-month training where they come and it takes about 16 months to learn the ropes, learn the county, learn what's going on, and then for them to go off somewhere else and be hired by a higher paying county, you've lost all that time and everything in it. And basically you'd have the same problem, but you wouldn't have anybody that's put 16 months into it. You'd have an entire new crew starting over.
Then that creates a huge problem.
Right, yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to vote for you. And I'll tell anybody that I'm going to vote for you because I not only respect you as a sheriff, I respect you as a friend. And you have, you're just been doing an amazing job. And you're going to make enemies. I'll guarantee you, you're going to make enemies no matter what you do.
I'm the first person to tell you I'm not perfect. And you made a comment earlier about some certain candidates, in elections, we need to quit choosing our friends. We need to quit choosing who we think is going to be the good old boy system. I can vote for somebody I personally don't like if I think they're going to do a job. And I got friends that if they run for mayor or city council or county government, I wouldn't vote for them because I know they wouldn't do a very good job.
Right.
And that's what people need to realize. You can vote for somebody you don't like. You can vote for somebody with a different personality, as long as they're doing the job and doing it to the best interest of the people, looking out for the taxpayers in this county, and quit worrying about just, hey, what kind of deals I can get, what kind of favors I can get. We need to get good people. And the other thing I see that really scares me on the national level and on local levels too, when the Bible tells us to elect godly men, that doesn't say perfect.
Right.
And when a godly man is in office, then he makes one mistake, he's crucified. Whereas the evil man gets in office, he can make all the mistakes he wants to and do all the immoral things he can possibly do, and he's fine. We tend to hold the Christian politicians to a higher standard.
Absolutely.
And which we probably should in a way that we know that they should be acting on their morals and beliefs, but they're still going to mess up. They're still going to do the wrong things.
There's less mercy.
They're still going to, but that's just it. There's no forgiveness. There's no mercy for them, and that's something that in this country is going to have to get away from if we expect to see good people get into office and stay there. I'm not going to say when a good person gets into office and it is new, sometimes temptation gets the best of them. They screw up. If it's not criminal, then really it's not the public's business. It needs to stay out of politics. And too many times we're bringing personalities and personal stuff into politics. Oh, well, I saw them drink a beer. I heard them cuss. Well, you're not going to find any purpose for anybody's job. So we got to quit, like I said, we got to quit holding certain people to higher standards, and we just need to expect them to do the job that we want them to do. Now, that doesn't say go out there and do, all the unjust, immoral acts that you can possibly find, but when someone messes up, don't brutally attack them, and just because often we get a replacement that's not great.
Right. Well, the thing is, you're not always going to agree with everything, but the job, and getting the job done and having somebody that can do the job, ultimately, if you don't, you're going to wind up with a bigger mess.
Exactly, and that's what we see a lot happening today.
Yes. What would you say to somebody if they didn't live here and they were wanting to retire here? And what would you say to encourage them and to let them know that it is safe and what you guys are doing to make it safe for them, to give them a place to get out of the city?
Well, our biggest asset is the lake. A lot of seniors want to move up to where they can do some fishing and lake recreation. Trinity County is a great place to live. The crime rate, as we said, has dropped in the last 3 years, and we continue to see it drop, and we're going to continue to see it drop because we're not going to give up. The lower you get the crime rate, the more you can manage it, the lower you can get it. And you'll finally get it to a level to where it's manageable. But you never can just say, hey, I'm going to manage it. You've got to continue.
Sure.
You've got to continue invent new ways to get after it because they're going to invent new ways too. But as far as crime in Trinity County goes, as far as property crimes, they're a lot lower. That's the burglaries and the thefts. But violent crime, unheard of here. We don't have a lot of it. And leave these other crimes unmanaged, then you will start to see more and more violent crimes. last year we had a few robberies in the city limits. There will be arrests made on most of all these shortly. But as far as a string of violent crimes, it's just not here. I think we have one murder every 3 years in Trinity County on average, and most of the time that is a drug-related killing. It's we're fighting over drugs or a drug deal gone bad. So for the people that lives out in the communities and in the subdivisions, that we have a lot of gated subdivisions. You know, the access is restricted, but you just don't see the violence that you see in the cities, especially arbitrary violence. It's just not random, and that's a key reason I think anybody would want to move up here, because it's a lot safer than it is in the cities.
Right.
And because everybody knows everybody, and everybody is familiar with who they are, and we're very open about who the criminals are in this community. We post them on Facebook. You know who they are, so you know who to watch. If they move in next to you, you know that that's a person that you possibly better watching. So crime is down. Violent crime is basically unheard of here, and I think that's what people want to hear is, am I going to be safe when I move there? Is my property going to be safe when I move there?
Well, you guys are doing a great job, and thank you. Thank you for coming and sitting down.
Well, thank you for having me.
Visiting with us again today, and I'm really looking forward because
You and I both.
I'm sure for you guys it's really
Well, it's physically,
grueling
it's
process.
mentally, it's emotionally just draining.
Yeah.
And when it's all over with, you don't want to do anything for a couple of weeks besides just nothing.
Yeah.
And it's taxing. But you know what? In the end, if you get elected and you do the right thing, and the people are doing the job that they're required to do, and they're doing it from the heart, it's well worth it.
I do have another question or observation, and that is March the 1st is the primaries, and we're of course going to be finding out who is going to be our representative in the November election. But basically, once the primaries are done in Trinity County, doesn't that pretty much lock everybody in?
It's over.
It's done.
It's over for our county then.
I mean, there'll still be a general election, but there won't
But
be.
that's just an official paperwork.
Right. There won't be any opposition on the ballot.
That's what I thought. Well, that's nice.
Yes.
I talked to a friend. We have a radio show, a national show on Monday nights, and when my partner that we work with lives in Florida, and we had a guest on the other night that was from Florida, and I asked him, when are your primaries? And he said the end of August, and I was like, oh my goodness.
Bless her heart.
Yeah, because I mean they are going, and there's like 12. This guy's running for Alan West's seat, and they are really going at it hard. But you know, well, it's almost over for us. So anyway, thank you so much, Woody. I really appreciate you.
Thank you.